we have a quorum, so we should get started. Just remind folks, we're being recorded by DCTV. Microphones are on, so do mind your conversations, because they will be duly broadcast across the whole town. So, first thing, I want to welcome Megan Morrison, who is here as the Conservation Commission representative to the CPC, which is fantastic.
Finally, we got it.
Yeah, huh, there's I've been falling all over her, so we met a little bit earlier, just to talk about what the CPC is, how it works. But Megan, if you just take a moment, if you just want to kind of tell us a little bit about what you do and.
Yeah,
That'd be
so
helpful.
I'm Megan, I'm on the Conservation Commission. I've been on it for about a year now, and currently I'm a project manager at South Coast Health. So I have some background in architecture, and I'm excited to be joining with you guys.
Excellent. Great. Nice to meet you.
And let's start
Sure.
with you.
I'm Mike Matos. I'm the representative from the Housing Authority. I'm the chairman of the Dartmouth Housing Authority, and I'm in affordable housing as my career.
I'm Christina, or Chris Sewell, and I'm on the Historical Commission. Been the rep here for probably 4 years, 5 years, something like that. And I live in Russell's Mills and co-own a campground in Maine, so I'm seasonal.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm Jovier, I'm with the Park Board, Park and Recreation,
A little bit about yourself, Joe?
retired.
You're tired?
Retired, yeah.
Retired, oh, I see, you're
Retired, too. Yeah, I was a police officer in Dartmouth for,
Yeah.
well, still kind of active, still part-time,
Nice.
38 years.
Yeah.
So, I'm here.
Jim Conlon, I'm one of the at-large members, which means I have no qualifications. And how long have I been, buddy? 5 or 6 years?
I think so, something like that.
Yeah, how can I miss you if you won't go away? And I live in Padenham, and what else?
Previously, you were on, when was it, Wellesley? You were on the CPC at
I'm
Wellesley?
a recidivist
Yeah.
CPC member. 'Cause before living in Dartmouth, I lived in Wellesley, and I was on the CPC there for a dozen years.
Nice.
And, so,
And when Jim's bored, he builds a boat.
My new best friend.
I get bored a lot, too.
And he, yeah. John?
John Souza, longtime volunteer with the town, served on numerous boards and commissions. Been on this board for
Oh,
20
man,
years
long time.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a member at large currently.
And Buddy Baker-Smith, the chair and member at large. And, I think I've probably been on the CPC since 2003 or something like that. Whatever that adds up to. Retired, I worked for a Department of Mental Health for 30 some odd years, doing housing work for 16, and then kind of senior administrative kind of stuff in this part of the state.
Nice.
Well, we've met, we've chatted already.
You've chatted?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay. You want to say anything about your personal background for the rest of us? We've never really got to know you too well.
I've been here forever.
Okay, there you go. There.
She helped plant the first cornerstone.
Yeah, and she keeps us on the straight and narrow, which is, I so appreciate. Okay, first order of business are minutes. We've received the minutes by email. Thank you, Michelle. So if I could have a motion to accept the minutes.
Motion to approve as printed.
Second.
And a second by Jim. Any changes, additions to the minutes? Yes,
I'm
Mike?
just gonna abstain because I wasn't here last.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor to accept the minutes as presented?
Aye.
All right, and one abstention, I believe. Two abstentions? Two abstentions. Very good. All right, we have an invoice do we not?
We do,
Thank you for doing this.
and I'll get the rest of the information on Monday.
This is an invoice for $225,000. And this is for the closing on the Pascomansit River Drinking Water Protection Land Acquisition. So typically what we'll do now is I'm gonna pass this, you can take a look at it, take a look at the attachment, and then pass it on, and then when it gets to Michael, he'll make a motion, and then we will entertain any questions about that. Yeah, and while you're looking at that, so the acquisition, the closing has occurred. Occurred, I think, about 10 days ago or so. What should have happened that did not happen is, because this was closing and the funds were needed in between meetings, either John or Margaret should have been contacted to come in and sign the invoice. Because that's our practice, is that while the town takes care of all the accounting of this and ensures that everything is in good order, the committee signs off on reimbursements. So that didn't happen. I'll write an email to Gary just to make sure that there's no misunderstanding. We've never,
There was misunderstanding
Had.
with that
yes,
from the beginning, because I didn't have any knowledge on what to do with that.
yeah. So I'll write, say, just want to make sure, that's what should have happened. And then we review the invoice and acknowledge that it got signed, because there
Because
was.
of that, did we cause anybody any heartburn, or was it, no?
No, it came right from accounting, so
Yeah,
there was no issue whatsoever.
yeah, we just don't want to, it's a pretty smooth operation. We just don't want to start drifting off to the, kicking up gravel. But it was, the closing went forward, the town accountant, is watching things, all that is in good order. It's just, we should have had one of our signers come in and sign off on it. So I just want to be clear that we're signing off on this. It has already been, the funds have been released and the property's been closed upon.
Okay, with that, then I'll make a motion to approve the invoice from the Dartmouth Department of Public Works for payment of 90%, it's for 90% draw? Or this is for the acquisition piece, right?
That's
For
$90.
$225,000.
Yep. A second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? No, that's unanimous. Thank you. Next thing we have, and so yes, 90%, so I did write to Tim Barber and let him know that the remaining $25,000 would be released once we received a closeout report, which is part of the memorandum of understanding, which basically just summarizes the project and makes sure the documentation for the project is in order, and that we have a copy of the recorded conservation restriction. So once we have that stuff, then he can invoice for the $25,000, and that'll be complete. So it's great. The project was delayed, I think, as folks remember, because there was a problem with the title, and that finally got cleared. Okey dokey. Okay. I have, for the June town meeting, happy to report that our administrative budget was approved. Our contributions to reserves was approved by the town, as well as the two projects, DCTV and the Davis Cemetery. So that's great. Our next step with the two projects is to set up memorandums of understanding with the town to cover the amount awarded. So let me pass this around, and here, Michelle, you have a copy. Here's a draft of conditions for those memorandum of understandings to take a look at. And then we want to finalize these and vote on these today. And then I will include that in the draft MOU, send it off to the sponsors, to the town. And we'll work with the town to get it executed so they can move forward with those projects. So the first, the DCTV, which is the renovations to the building on Russell Mills Road. The conditions kind of that have been drafted here, that I've drafted for us to consider. One, the release of funds. So you have to execute the memorandum of understanding. So we have to have a signed agreement for the funds. And then for the release of the funds, since this is a historic preservation project, I thought it would be important that they would need to submit the lead architect's qualifications and experience, basically the CV of the lead architect, just to make sure that, because that is specifically the thing that we needed to make sure that they attended to, is to make sure that the work done was consistent with the Department of Interior standards. And then the final disbursement would be based on the going to the Historical Commission to make sure that they approve of the final scope of work and specifications. So this is, as folks recall, this project is to have an architect prepare bid documents. So essentially, the last bit of money would be released when the Historical Commission is satisfied that those specifications and the intended work on the property is consistent with kind of preserving a historically significant building in town. So we just take these up one at a time, does that make sense? So any thoughts about these as conditions?
I'm definitely in favor of them, from my point of view, and they did come before us to talk about the project, so.
Yeah.
We've already had some contact.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it that same architect the one that did the Southworth Library?
We haven't seen the
Oh,
architect
okay,
yet.
all right, okay.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the person in the area that,
Yeah.
the Southworth, okay.
So
Yeah.
my only thought is DCTV gonna have the contract with the architect, though? Contract with the
Yeah,
architect.
yeah, it's either I don't know if it's the town or DCTV particular,
Okay.
but it may be the town on DCTV's behalf,
I
most
see,
likely.
okay.
Yes.
Because I'm just wondering if, on the release of funds, rather than just get the resume, maybe we get also a copy of the contract or something,
Yeah.
evidence that they've been
Everything's in
engaged,
order,
that they've been
everything's in
engaged,
place,
you know?
right, right,
So that way we're paying against the actual legit contract.
yeah, yeah.
Buddy, just it's clarification, I don't think anything could happen, but you never know.
Yes.
I don't think with the existing historic commission, but, things change. Number 3, it's Dartmouth Historic Commission approval of final scope of work and specification for bid documents. That language, final scope of work, there could be a scope of work in there that's not related to anything under the Historic Commission's purview, such as air conditioning units, there's a lot of things
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so to say they have approval on the final scope of work, I think, is a little bit overreaching, and, I doubt it if something can happen, but, all it takes is a couple members to say, no, I don't like that choice over here, and they could hold things up. Their purview is related to I think only the exterior of the building.
That's right.
As relates to historic.
Correct.
Yeah, what if I?
So if there's any
yeah.
other scope of work, they shouldn't have approval on the final scope of work.
What if I say, what do you think of this, John? I understand your point, I believe. The Dartmouth Historical Commission approval of the CPA-funded scope of work.
You could even say,
I'm
you could
calling
even say
everything
Exterior alterations.
Yeah.
Meets
Okay.
their standards or something, do they have?
The exterior, I see what John's saying, I kind of.
That's all they have is the exterior alterations is
Yeah,
what they,
control,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the authority.
okay.
Makes sense.
you know, not landscape and, that scope of work can include a lot of things.
Right, right. Okay, approval.
exterior building structure.
What's that?
The exterior building structure,
Yeah.
Exterior facade,
Yeah,
exterior work.
facade.
Yep,
Exterior facade only.
the exterior building structure scope of work and specifications for bid documents. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I have the two edits to this. And number 2 would read, for release of funds would be submission of lead architect's historic preservation qualifications and experience. And then there would be a second item, which is a copy of the contract for professional services. How's that? Okay. And then the item 3 would be final disbursement, Dartmouth Historical Commission approval of the exterior building structure scope of work and specifications for bid documents. Have a motion on those?
second,
Further discussion? That sound good? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. And then the Davis Cemetery, so the Davis, Megan, for your benefit, the Davis Cemetery is a restoration of gravestones, the cemetery next to Lazy Boy on Fons Corner Road. Cleaning, and then there are about 69, I think, if I remember right, stones that have been damaged, might be off the pedestal or laying on the ground or something, that will be repaired. And then there's a portion of a dry stone wall that's going to be repaired, that's kind of fallen over, I think, a tree or something is probably in the way. So I've drafted these conditions, execution of the CPC Memorandum of Understanding for release of funds for for restoration work, Dartmouth Historical Commission endorsement of contractor and specifications for scope of work, copy of notice to proceed to contractor to commence project work, and then final disbursement, Dartmouth Historical Commission endorsement that the scope of work has been satisfactorily completed as proposed. Thoughts about those?
does 2A,
Yeah.
the letter that we've already voted on and signed and sent in support with the application? You want
were
us
they-
to kind of review
I
that, something more specific?
The one thing I
about
wonder
scope?
about, right, is who's going to do the work?
Okay,
And I think that is probably something that the Historical Commission would still want to see. And I don't recall that a particular contractor or anything has yet was identified, but I'm not positive of that.
I think Lancaster's done anything with that.
I thought it was somebody that Judy had contacted who had already worked in Westport. I know she was putting it out.
Right, so I
Okay.
think the Historical Commission should still have the opportunity to know who's gonna do the work. And I guess my thinking behind that is, this is the first cemetery restoration we've had in town. You know, it is kind of a delicate, don't screw it up kind of a project.
Yeah.
You're talking about some
Okay.
old gravestones. So I think it would, that was my thought. is
Okay,
probably
so they
wanna-
haven't come up with the bid went out, but they haven't selected
Not that I'm
anybody.
aware of. I haven't heard from Judy on that.
All right.
Is this something, I'm just thinking, Mike, is this something that also should have copy of the contract?
Well, I think what gave me the thought with the contract was you had copy of notice to proceed on that one.
Yeah.
So notice to proceed kind of indicates that there is a contract in place, to me.
Yeah.
So either one, I think it's either one or the other, it doesn't really matter. We just want to make sure that the person's been engaged, whoever's doing it, that we're paying somebody, we're releasing funds who actually has been engaged, that's the
Yeah.
concept. So I think either one would suffice, in my opinion, but,
Do you think
Whatever
one's,
others
do you think one's better than another?
yeah, I mean, if they're gonna have a contract and we can get a copy, why not, either one's fine.
Let's go with the one that's, would be better.
Because that's what we're paying against, really, at the end of the day. They're billing against that contract.
Yeah. Well, back from the cantaloupe field, are you? Or maybe kale? Joe's been giving us
Cantaloupe.
different versions of why
Fished her 3 times, said she's gonna be late, she's picking cantaloupes,
Cantaloupes.
kale, I don't
I'm
care.
like,
I told them there are no cantaloupes.
yeah, where should I go? Cantaloupes?
Got a long way to go to start picking those.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. This is a
Yeah,
difficult
the
time.
bid for this, the bid spec hasn't been put together yet. All right, it sounds like they're waiting for, I'm gonna assume that's Judy, partner,
Yeah.
back to me. Rate sheets, doc specs, mostly done, 3 prices, so they're getting it, but they're
Yeah,
not,
okay.
they're not at that level yet, he's waiting on,
Yeah.
some specs. I knew he had it.
Susan, this is our new member, Megan Morrison, who's a representative from the Conservation Commission,
Great.
and Susan Murray, who's at large,
I'm gonna guess
member,
that's probably Judy.
who has farming responsibilities in addition to family and a full-time job.
Juggle.
That should say it all. Okay, and here, can pass.
Looks like they have.
Got a spare one? We kept it here for her.
Oh, okay, fantastic, thank you. So we're just going over the conditions that we would have on these memorandums of understanding. Okay,
Motion to accept the conditions as revised.
Second.
okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Would you like to abstain?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you. The Dartmouth Cultural Center got its up to 30-year lease from the town, which at town meeting approved. So they're very excited about that. This is what they've kind of delayed moving forward with the renovation work, thinking that this designation will put them in a position to be bidding the project as a private nonprofit as opposed to a public municipality. So they think there's some advantages to that, so hopefully they will reap the benefit of that. But they're gonna turn their sights now to kind of really moving forward with getting the contractor and getting the work underway. Our CPC website. I met with, excuse me, I met with Magnolia McComish. And this is where we are with the website work. I went over the expanded project information that is linked to the GIS map. And said that, you know, the committee looked very favorably on that. What, you know, now how should we roll this stuff out to them? In what format, et cetera, et cetera. So, what I'm gonna do, so where we left off is, I'm gonna convert this Word document that I have the project list on. It has several columns with the different information that we want to have displayed on it. Convert it to a spreadsheet, because that's gonna be easier for them to work with. Gonna add a little column so that they can check off as they've uploaded the information. We'll have a little project write-up that will be a separate Word document for each of the projects that the spreadsheet will have a link to. We'll have photographs as separate files that the spreadsheet will have a link to. And all this stuff will sit in a Google Drive that the town will set up that will be shared, so that basically we'll just, you know, I'll start dropping these files into that shared folder, and then they will just upload the information as it comes in. And they are also gonna look at making their scanners available, because we'll go back, probably go back about 9 or so years, we have digital submissions, but before then, I think it might be 9 years, maybe a little bit longer. Before then, we didn't have digital submissions, we just had hard copies. So at some point, there need to be some scanning to get all the applications in a digital format. She is going to talk to Chad, I think it is, about, okay, we have 96 awards, so that means we have 96 applications. Is that gonna be too much for them to handle, and where are those things gonna be? You know, Michelle, do you have a folder there where the digital applications are sitting? Can they just access that and not have, anyway, so they're gonna sort through the logistics of how to make the applications available, but we're working on it. So I think the thing is to get on some kind of a pace, do several of these every month. They'll upload them, send them some more each month. So I told them that we don't have any particularly pressing deadline, but if we just, I think we've worked out how to move the information to them in a way that they can then work with it and upload it. She's also gonna look around and see if she can find some kind of an icon for the historic preservation sites. So she has a little cow for agriculture, and a little house for housing. It's got a green kind of thing, just blank green thing for open space. But I did say, well, you know, kind of a blue thing doesn't really say much about historic preservation. So she's gonna see if she can come up with some, you know, of what's available, what might suggest something.
Diane, happy to take a picture of the Aiken house and put it on.
Yeah, yeah. No, that
I
is
think
true.
she has one.
Probably several. I mean, I tell you tongue in cheek, but it's probably the most prominent
Yeah.
thing that we have that stands out.
I was thinking of an old person with a cane trying to navigate.
Something like that. I mean, if we have something in town, why not take a picture of something that we have?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
So, but I'll mention that to
Pile of
her.
rocks,
A what?
a pile of rocks.
could do that
on
too.
a stone wall.
So that was Prince Philip's War.
Yeah, so that may be of this project, ultimately, this one aspect might be the hardest thing to
Through
pull
the
off.
administrative, part, would it be something we could hire somebody to put all 96, scanning all of those?
Yeah, we'll have to see,
I mean, just get them done, I mean, instead of dragging our feet, I mean,
Right.
they're gonna, I mean, to have, ask them to do it, I got a funny suspicion they may be tied up a little short.
yeah. Yeah.
But maybe have,
Well, we can do that. A lot of that is just with the town, is the town okay about hiring a service, letting us hire a service or an intern or somebody just to do that kind of stuff?
I mean, 96 would take, that's a week's,
Well-
that's not even a week's work.
It's not 96, so we have a bunch of digital, but it's still a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. These applications have multiple pages and attachments and things like that. So when we get to that point, yes, I can see. We
Just get
can
it
do.
done. I mean, I'm of the opinion, just get it done. There's no
Yeah.
sense dragging it on. If we let it, flip the switch, get it all out there for people if they want to see it.
Yeah.
Do they get any kids working in town hall
Any kids working in town?
in the summer?
Just on the park side, right now
Yeah.
downstairs. I mean, there
So
are
a
kids, there are
rainy- Rainy
kids.
day for a lifeguard?
Yeah, yes, could this be rainy day lifeguard
They
work?
talk about interns from UMass, but it's just talk.
Yeah.
We can reach out once, we're going through a little bit of a structural change ourselves right now. but,
Yeah.
I'll come back to maybe July's meeting. I'll bring that.
Yeah.
I have a meeting on Thursday. I'll bring it to them.
Well, right, and we've got some time because
Yeah.
we've got a lot of the ones that are already digitized, I just can start feeding, I'll start with those and just start feeding those, probably, we'll work our way backwards in time. On this. Yeah,
Is there any additional useful information about our projects on the Community Preservation Coalition website or in that database?
well, I upload our stuff every September, so we're current there.
But nobody's gotten creative in that process.
No, that's a pretty dry thing, it's a pretty dry, like, you get this little snippet of information in
It's not rich.
a very utilitarian kind of format, yeah. But we are up to date in that. Okay, well, we'll continue to update you on progress. Speaking of updating on progress, there's been no progress on the open space preservation. My next step, I think, is just getting in front of the Conservation Commission and kind of going over a set of steps about, when they would be contacted by a sponsor who's interested in doing a project, they decide, they agreeing to pursue the CPA funds for conservation restriction, figuring out whether or not they want to partner with someone to hold the restriction. Just going through those steps, and I think we're probably at that stage, and so that there's.
We have connections now, we know.
We have connections, yeah. Yeah. We. And then historic building inventory, Chris?
Nothing to
No.
update since last time. We're still waiting for her to finish the previous job so she can start ours
Yeah, and I think, was it August is what she thought,
at the latest, yeah.
yeah. So that's good. I did confirm with Donna Fernandez that the money that we've
Yeah.
committed for this contract can roll over, so we're good there. So it's obligated under this fiscal year, and it's fine that it starts, or fiscal '25, it's fine that it has a start date of, by August 1, so we're good there. Then I have a review of the project status reports that we received, and we've received 3. We just got one in this afternoon. Let's see here. Huh? I have the Pascamansit, and then I have Heritage Trail, and then hot off the presses, the Scenic Greenway. The Heritage Trail? No, I wonder if he may not have copied you. Okay. Briefly, the Pascamansit Drinking Water closed, I think it was like May 26th or 7th, something like that. The probate work had been completed, so the title was clear. And we're good to go. And they've got the conservation restriction had all been worked out and gone through approval. So we're good to go. We'll just get the closeout report from them, and that will allow us to release the balance of the funds when they give us that report and the copy of the recorded conservation restriction. Heritage Trail, I'm reading from the report from Mr. Langhauser of the Pathways Committee. The project has stalled, and it has been in stall mode for many, many months now. The project has stalled as we are unable to find a contractor to install the wayfaring signs. The town DPW has declined our request for help, although they did agree to help install other DPC road signs. One contractor has agreed verbally but has yet to provide a quote in writing. Calls to 2 other contractors have not been returned. In terms of their challenges, we believe the problem/reluctance to take on this project is due to the number of dig-safe inspections that will be required for each sign installation. The contractor will need to coordinate five inspections for each sign, and there are 33 signs. 5 inspections for each sign.
It's not a complicated process. You go out and put some white marks on the street,
Yeah.
the area you're working, you call DigSafe, they coordinate with all the utilities. And all the utilities don't do an inspection, they come out and.
Mark their stuff.
Their utilities.
It's pretty
Okay.
simple.
It's
Okay,
a,
there's not inspections, it's
No,
the
no,
the
no, no.
utilities coming out and marking.
no, and,
Yeah.
you know, it's just.
It's one phone
Call
call.
the DigSafe and DigSafe takes it from there.
Yeah.
And there's no charge for the service.
You're on utilities, gas, electric,
Yeah.
sewer, that's what they call
Each-
5
each
utilities.
utility,
Each
yeah, okay.
utility is responsible to go out there
Yeah.
and do it.
Yeah.
So that's what that is for Verizon, because of fiber, yeah, but it's just a call to DigSafe, just one call,
Yeah,
and a call to the town. I think the town is separate from DigSafe.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's a little bit of, you know, you gotta go out there and physically mark it, give them,
Yeah.
you know, an address or, you know, something to get them there, and
But DigSafe takes care of,
once you've notified DigSafe, they.
do the
and-
coordinator,
and
right?
I think it's, once you've notified, it's X amount of days, I don't know if it's 3, 5, or 7 days.
3 days.
I think it's only 3 days, yeah.
Yeah,
And if there's no markings, you're clear to go.
yeah, okay. So they're trying to work through that.
The
DPW
street
is,
sign one, this is the street sign guy, right? Because I know the park department already
Yes,
put up. we put
DPW
up-
is
We put
down-
up signs for them once, for somebody. That was for the bike, that
right,
was from the, I don't even know what it was, the trail that we had.
yeah.
And these are all street signs. Now, this is the fact that to get them actually made also, right?
I think they are made.
I think you're-
I think
it's
it's,
just actually
this
putting
is
it in the
just
ground.
installation at this point, yeah, yeah. So 33, they're about a mile apart to mark the route. So I'll keep touch. I saw Tim Barber after the town meeting, and, you know, I mean, his situation is they're down staff, and they're
The main sign guy retired.
and their sign guy retired. You know, I'm just encouraging Tim to just, if you can be clear, so I said, it's really mostly communication. If you just be clear about what you can do. Can you do 2 a month? You know, just, can you, you know, what can you do, and try to get on a schedule? I think everybody would be, you know, feel happy about this, knowing it's not all 33 are gonna get installed in a week, but just, can you commit to some reasonable kind of schedule of putting the signs up? But they have also asked separately, like, if you let us find a contractor, there is a balance of funds in the CPA grant that would allow them just to pay somebody to install the signs. So that's why, that's what Mr. Lang has, I think they've given him a couple of names, and now he's trying to hustle up bids. I think what he means by declined a request for help, I think it's helping, probably running down the contractors and getting prices and stuff. So I think that's on the volunteers to do that. So hopefully, I'll check in with Tim and see how that's going, and just encourage him to, any little bit, just take it one small piece at a time. A lot of people will at least get the sense that this is, there's a path forward, but you can hear the frustration, because this has been going on almost a year now, I think. They've been at this stage, certainly about 9 months. And then the final status report is the Northern Scenic Greenway. And Ms. Medeiros writes, we are awaiting the Mass Trails Grant decision from the Department of Conservation and Recreation. The award announcement has been delayed to mid-July due to the current economic situation. We are assured a decision will be made by mid-July. If we do not receive the MTG, or if we receive a lesser amount than requested, we hope to use the CPA funds from the 3 municipalities, Westport, Dartmouth, and New Bedford, and the South Coast Bike Association to complete the first phase of the project. In addition, we would seek additional grant funding from private foundations and a 2026 MTG to complete the project. So we will maybe learn a little bit more by our August meeting if that Mass Trails grant came through for them. And if not, then we can have them just describe in a little bit more detail what they can complete with the existing combined CPA funds. Okay. And then I had sent to you all only today, I think, correct? Yeah, sorry about that. The active project list. And what we want to do is I want to go through that. We just need to pay attention to the term dates on agreements to make sure that they don't lapse, if we don't want them to lapse. Or we want them to lapse, and then we will say, we're fine, we're done. So I'll go through these, and the first few, I will just go through just as an FYI. There's no action needed because they are open-ended agreements. They've set up programs in town, and the town draws them down over time. So the first set are the housing rehab and rehab administration funds. Original grant, 2012, there's outstanding balance of $38,167. Related to that, the rehab administrative outstanding balance is $8,400. 2014, ongoing, rehab is outstanding balance of $60,000 and an outstanding balance of rehab administration of $382.46. 2015, rehab outstanding balance of $60,000 and an outstanding balance of rehab administration of $6,125. So that's about 150, 160, it's about 175 or so thousand that's in the rehab loan program. Our last update of that program is that had been going through a legal review just to make sure the documentation was consistent with the requirements of the CPA in terms of affordability and the long-term affordability, which is what they had previously structured around basically would be considered a deferred loan program. So you get the money, but you're income eligible. You owe nothing on the, to pay it back until the property changes hand. So, the dog park, outstanding balance, so it's originally 2017. Outstanding balance, $282,353.95. The MOU, current MOU, expires June 30th of this year. And so my recommendation to the committee would be to extend the term to June 30th, 2026.
Motion.
Okay, a second?
Second?
Okay, any discussion? We do know that they are proceeding with a contractor and all that. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Dias Landing Marina Expansion, 2022. Outstanding balance, $200,000. The MOU expires June 30th. So my recommendation, just to keep things simple so we don't have to keep remembering the odd term date, is to extend this to 12/31/25. It's done, they just haven't requisitioned it. It'll probably all wrap up if they send in the invoices and all that, but if we just kind of do 12/31/25, it'll take care of itself well before then. But if, our Murphy's Law, if we did, September, there would be some stumble, and then we'd be back doing this for, again.
Motion.
All right, second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, any opposed? No, it's unanimous. Mendes Montero House, this is 2023, outstanding balance of $50,000. That's the 10% holdback, waiting for occupancy permit. Construction continues. The agreement expires August 1st, 2025. And I guess, Mike, you might have a better opinion of this. I don't know how far construction is into this, but I have here recommending extending the MOU, the agreement to 12/31/25, but I don't know what, the release is on occupancy permit, so the project has to be done.
Yeah, and honestly, off the top of my head right now, I can't remember what their projected C of O date was. But I would think that between now and the end of this year, they should have it, but I can confirm that with,
Okay,
because, as you know, Connie's no longer the director, so I don't see her that often
right,
anymore.
yeah,
But I can just shoot her a quick email and find out, so I think that if we make the motion, extend it, there should be more than enough time.
yeah.
And if it's not, we can.
And if not, we can take it up in
Yeah.
December. Okay,
Right.
okay. Well, then the recommendation is still then to extend this to 12/31/25.
Motion.
So,
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, that's unanimous.
Give the next one, John.
Dartmouth Heritage Trail, I jumped right over that. And that expires, thank you. This is why Michelle earns more than her actual pay. This is 2022, the Heritage Trail, I just described where they're at. The MOU expires 6/30/25. I've been recommending extending it to 12/31/25.
So moved.
And second? All right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Opposed? No, that's unanimous. Great. The Cultural Center, 2023, outstanding balance of $246,627. The agreement expires June 30th, 25, and I'm recommending that the committee can extend the term to June 30th, 2026.
I don't think they're gonna hit that date. I'd prefer to go to the end of the year in 26.
12/31?
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah, they haven't even.
right, they haven't even gotten
They
out of
just
the
got their
gate.
30-year lease, so they got a long way to go, so.
Yep, okay.
Why, we'll be having the same conversation in a year from now, so why not just extend it to the end of the year? So my motion is to extend that to 12/31/26.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Yeah, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Am I like reading every other line or something? It must be these glasses. I'm sorry. Yeah, it must be these glasses. Is that what they mean by bifocal, just every other? Okay. Pascomanset Drinking Water, outstanding balance, 25,000. It expires on 6/30/25, and I'm not recommending extending, but then I'm also not sure if that's wise either. They still need to do the closeout report and get a copy of the CR for the release of funds, so perhaps wiser to do, just put this out to 12/31. It'll wrap a lot sooner than that.
Yeah, motion for that, 12/31/25.
Okay, and there was a second of Mike, and any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, it's unanimous, unanimous. Okay, now I'm gonna put my finger on each one, so I remember where I am. The dinghy storage, the MOU expires August 1st, 2025. I recommend we just kind of hold off for one more month before making a decision here. They did not get the state grant for the rest of the money to do the improvements, and wanted time to consider how else they might get money to do this. So I do think kind of a question of whether or not there's any progress that they feel they can make towards that. So,
Would we call Murphy in in July?
yeah, well, I asked, I wrote to Steve Mello and said, we're gonna put it off, and, I'm recommending putting it off a decision until July, with the idea that they would have a plan for us if they reasonably think they can do this project with the money that we have and other resources, that they would give us a plan in July, so that we would have an idea whether or not this is something that can actually be pulled off. Housing production plan, no action required, expires 12/31/25. Same with the Cornell Pond Trail development. We have the revised budget that we looked at and endorsed in March. And then that is also true of the master plan, harbor dredging, Northern Scenic Greenway. And so the rest, I think, they're fine, and we'll deal with them in December. And then the two new projects, we're working out the MOUs now. Okay, great. Well, thank you, that was good. Mike, are you able to just give us a little bit of update, what you know about the housing production plan?
My apologies, I dropped the ball, on this one, because I thought tomorrow was the second meeting, and it was actually today, so I missed it. So I didn't go to it, so I'm gonna follow up with, I know someone was on the committee, I'll get an update from them, and I can share it through an email or whatever, but, I did attend the first one, was about 3 weeks ago. I don't know if Margaret, because I missed the last meeting here, whether she gave that report or not, but, I think the intent today was to get a little bit more. Serpent was sort of, asking a lot of questions about, and it was turned into a general forum last time about a lot of thoughts and opinions and whatnot being thrown out about affordable housing in general, in the community. in the area. Talked a little bit about, some of the needs. Serpent talked a little about some of the research that they were doing, in terms of like, you know, that, again, the demand and population and all that, and based on income bands and census information. And then we got into a little bit of some obstacles, and I just shared my perspective as a affordable housing developer, you know, as to some of the different obstacles and things that I see in different communities. And so I think we were gonna get deeper into that in this meeting that I missed today. So apologies, but I'll follow up.
Great, thank you. Yeah, if you do have something that you learned from that and just
Yeah.
wanna, you can send it to me, and I'll just as an FYI, I'll just distribute it to the committee.
Are we affected by the MBTA? Because I know that's gonna be part of it, because I've been reading some of the other local
Yeah,
communities.
we're not obviously a direct MBTA community, so we're not in that, that tier of like, you know, we don't have to, be compliant within whatever I forget the exact date is.
Yeah, multifamily housing
Right.
type thing, yeah.
But we're adjacent now because of New Bedford, so there is a separate tranche that we will at some point have to have some sort of, you know, compliance in. I know the communities that have the MBTA's, they have to have a multifamily district, you know, that allows it by right, and whether it be an overlay district or something like that. And, you know, some communities have fought that, some communities have embraced it, but, you know, I don't, right now, we're not under that obligation, is my understanding.
Because I know there was this thing, I saw that they fought it, but they lost.
Right.
They lost, they had to fulfill, I think, the Supreme Court mess.
Yeah, that was Milton, I think,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah.
Just wasn't sure we were in
But
that.
we're
I
not,
haven't heard
no, we're
much.
not at that level right now,
Okay.
Dartmouth's not. I'd have to go back and check, I don't remember that second tier, what the date is for that second tier. And the standards are probably not gonna be as, you know, high. Because you don't.
Any standards for us right now is high.
Right, but I mean, in terms of like, I don't know, I have to look, but I'm just saying, you
Okay.
know, whereas if you're in New Bedford and you have the train in your community, they wanna, their whole thing is they wanna create housing around the train, or, you know, all that. So, where if we don't have a train, but we're gonna be a bedroom community to a community that does, so they still wanna have, you know, multifamily options, in the region, so.
Yeah, and I know, you know, part of, this has been great that we have a couple of representatives in this process. We haven't, never had that before. And so, which makes a whole lot of sense, since we're a pretty important resource for funding. But I know it's also kind of us being able, as a committee, being able to provide, you know, have these discussions with you and Margaret present, so that you can take back some of kind of the substance of what is talked about here around the housing. You know, and I think certainly one concern that I have had, and I think we've expressed just as a committee at different times, is we just don't get the proposals. And so what is it that does not, what are those barriers that seem to be present in Dartmouth, that we're not getting proposals for housing? Or certainly people are not thinking of coming to the CPC, or using CPA funds in Dartmouth, because you know, we've only had 2 proposals over these years. And then I think, Susan, maybe you want to just speak from the farming community point of view around housing, if you want to just.
Yeah, I think most, the farmers I know that have kind of given up on trying to attract, so there are some farmers in our town that could attract people from a bigger area to come work on their farm and be sort of apprentice and learn how to do it. And they've kind of given up on that because housing is so expensive. And so we all have people living kind of throughout the communities, New Bedford, Dartmouth. And we also, a lot of the farmers actually get people coming in from Providence.
That will commute.
That will commute. It doesn't, I mean, it doesn't usually work out well in the long term. They either find something closer or, you know, it doesn't work. There have been some people that it's worked out long-term, but yeah, I mean, we're attracting people from Providence, but there's definitely, you know, there's certain farmers that could attract a much, you know, their farm is pretty well-known in the farming community, and they could attract people to come in, but they just struggle with the housing. And so one in particular had an agreement for a little while with Round the Bend Farm, because they have the tiny houses
Yeah.
that are seasonal. But then they've expanded, and so now they use all their tiny houses for their own employees. So there's a definite need, and I think the farms definitely struggle trying to. We often find people that they don't want to be farmers. They're going to work on the farm for a little while, but it's not the career they want, versus attracting someone from elsewhere, having housing for them, and their goal is to be a farmer, and so they're training on your farm. And those are two very different types of help on a farm. And if there was better access to affordable housing for farm workers, it would definitely be a huge boost to the farming community, because we could attract those, we could get farm managers moving in that, you know, they're gonna work on your farm for a couple years and then they're gonna start their own farm. But just having that talent level, we just don't, we don't have that for farm labor. There's actually a couple people in southeastern Mass that are professional farmers, so they don't wanna own their own farm, but they work on other farms professionally. But that's kind of rare.
How does that, with Massachusetts now, with the housing thing there, so many square feet, I forget what it was, but it allows you to put a small house or a small trailer on your property. It escapes me what,
The accessory dwelling?
yeah, how would that affect you guys if you had the ability for these farmers, if they were to do that?
It depends on how the town is gonna regulate
It's a
that.
state thing, I think they have no choice, I think they have to let
Okay.
you do it. That's one of, again, that's within the last,
I think it's in the bylaws.
yeah, but I think it's a statewide thing too, I think it was something that was actually legislatively.
It has been in the zoning bylaw for
For
a long time.
like a
That-
senior or a elder or a relative, but this is actual something different that the state had passed recently. This is within the last 3 or 4 months.
Right, they did, but the town already has updated theirs. We've had
Okay.
It's allowed by.
an accessory
right now,
apartment bylaw, and
as opposed
they
to
just
being
increased the
special
size
Yeah,
of
not
the
till that law.
ADU.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, even for the farmers, for something like that, like the smaller,
It also depends, a lot of farmers don't own their farmland,
Gotcha.
so,
lease it.
and then that complicates it, whether their landlord wants.
because this was a discussion here with some, we actually, before you got, we were talking about, before we went online about that, because I remember a meeting here, and I don't know who the farmer was, it could have been you could have been sitting in a thing, who brought this up about housing for people who want to work on that farm, and the way it's structured, how the things are cut up, so that's kind of always been on my mind, it makes,
So, one of, I'm putting on my old planning board hat, zoning only allows one, what we call them ADUs now, per lot, or per residence, so how Round the Farm did it, maybe they were grandfathered because they've been there for decades, I don't know, but nobody could repeat what Round the Bend Farm has done with these tiny houses, you call them. And it's a shame, so maybe the farming community can lobby the planning board to say, hey, let's do a simple revision to our bylaws to allow farmers over, so many acres to have tiny houses on their properties for
or a,
farmhands.
or a small
And-
agricultural
Yeah,
campground.
and you could,
Yeah, I mean, it's hard,
because that's probably the limitations there, it's just, you can't do it. Well,
Yeah.
change the bylaws.
those tiny houses, they have no running water, I think it would be nice to have something that actually is
No, that's why a
livable
zoning
year-round.
change would,
Yeah.
would allow that. Those tiny houses have probably been there for
Yeah.
decades.
The other
And-
thing is, we can't get H2A workers because you have to supply housing for them, and you have to, it's just not possible.
But a camper doesn't subscribe to that.
I would have to look
It
into,
has all the amenities, if you had the
Yeah.
facilities for it, I mean, it's,
Even,
but Dartmouth won't allow
Well, that's what you open the camp.
planning board to
campground.
consider dorms on farms, because tiny houses can get expensive now.
Yeah.
Right, if you're gonna build it to code, water and everyone, well, if we allow a dorm type setting
Yeah.
in an attractive barn, why not, you know?
Our planning board's been handicapping us for years by the zoning and restrictions. That's why we're in the position that we're in, quite honestly.
Yeah, no,
Snob zoning, the whole thing. I think I said that at an earlier meeting. It's time to kind of really take a look at it again. I think we've gone beyond that, especially something as clear as this, where if we're trying to promote farming, we're trying to get some new blood into it, because all the old timers are leaving us. And if they have these restrictions, too bad Margaret's not here, because I think that's something that the town should look at now.
And what you're describing is, it sounds like some of it might be considered like seasonal housing, but not necessarily. Some of it would,
I
could
think
be-
if you really want to attract talent in, it's gotta be year-round
Yeah,
housing.
yeah,
You know, there definitely could be like, hey, we've got trailers for, I mean, farms swell in the summer for employees, but also having that year-round nice house, you know, relatively nice house. I mean, when I interned on a farm, one of them I lived in something called a people coop, which was modeled after a chicken coop, but for people. And one was a remodeled sugar shack with no electricity, no running water, and it's not pleasant,
yeah.
you know? If we,
We got a building
yeah.
that was on
I
Yellowstone.
mean, this is,
Yeah.
I mean, isn't this the problem from 120 years ago, when the textile industry was taking in people from the hinterlands and having to provide housing, and they built rooming houses.
South end of New Bedford is
And,
Berkshire Hathaway.
And so, if a dormitory model, or rooming house model would be acceptable for, year-round, to use a business term, junior level or entry level, farmers, I mean, that's a much broader question than farmers. You know,
I mean, we've tried to
that
work
we-
with
we'd have-
UMass Dartmouth to like try and see if they could stay in housing there just for like summer employ, like, but they don't want to. There's, people have looked into a lot of different things. There's a farmer in they've land in Westport and in Little Compton, but they bought the house next door to them when it came up so that their farm manager could live there. But that's, not very many people have that opportunity or can do that, you know, when it saddled their farm with extraordinary debt to add a second mortgage on, just to be able to keep and attract good help.
So some food for thought.
Yeah, no, that's
in
good
these
input, so,
discussions.
you know,
Yeah.
I think we're just gonna have monthly meetings from now until the time they
Yeah.
get it done, so I'll bring that info back to them, and, you know, my only take, again, from my perspective is, I'm always thinking about, these are all great ideas, but I'm always thinking, how's it gonna get financed? How you gonna
Yeah,
build it?
right,
You know, how you gonna make the math work to get it done? you know, and
Exactly, yes.
Who's gonna own it? What's the organizational structure look like? And like, all of that stuff has to be considered. And right now, you know, just in general, the affordable housing market in Mass is getting, it's kind of like shifting and changing a little bit. A lot of the resources that have been there are starting to, you know, shrink, and the demand is just as great, if not greater than it's ever been. So you have a lot of people going after the same resources. It's very competitive, and you have to have a story. You gotta have the hook, you know, to make the state want to fund you, to be part of the success story, you know what I mean? And then in every market's a little different, you know, some communities, you know, cause you can't, you know, again, the state wants to see extremely low-income units, 13% minimum, but they also wanna see, you know, 60%, 80%, they like to see a broad range of affordability. That's great, but if the rents at the 60% level can't give you enough rental income to get a permanent debt on your property, the math doesn't work. So that's why it's like, it's a balancing act, it's a seesaw.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, if you're in an area like Dartmouth is, where the tax credit rents are relatively low compared to other communities in the state. And so that is also a challenge from a buildable perspective of tax credit housing. And I say that because tax credit resources is like the number one equity tool that we use in our toolbox to get production, you know? So it's just, there's a lot to it, you know, with little, but yeah, it's all great goals and just gotta figure out how to put them in action.
Yeah, how you can really
There's-
make it
There's
happen.
also, like, the flip side of this is, also farmers with succession. There's a farmer I know, he's not in our town, but in another town, none of his kids want to continue farming. He wants to see the land preserved, but as many farmers, all their retirement is their land. So, you know, doesn't have a lot of cash, but all of it is in his land. So how do you create, you know, he's been thinking about like, how you create a model so that, you know, the land could be permanently preserved as farmland. He can retire in his house and but he has the income generation to be able to do that. And so his thought is you know, 10% of the land is developed into affordable housing. You put a conservation restriction or APR in the land, so that stays, and he becomes a landlord and has that income from those rentals. And it's something a little, like, just a different way of, instead of selling the whole thing to a developer. And I think it's an interesting, I think there's gotta be some interesting things that marries affordable housing, farming succession. So we have, I think 60% of southeastern Massachusetts are farmers of retirement or nearing retirement age. So we have there's gonna be a mass exodus at some point, and so there's like several parts of this that
It's interesting.
should be
Take
worked
part of
out.
those farms and make it affordable housing for farmers.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of it, is it could be, but it could also be to the general public too.
That's interesting.
Like a co-op farm, an agricultural co-op with one farm that goes and he becomes a landlord. And all the people, the workers and everything else, they could build a section there that would be specifically even through a CR that would be specifically for, you know, you would say managers or whatever you call them, farm workers. That would be that. And there would be something that you'd pick, especially if it was a farm that was centrally located with some of the other ones in the community. Instead of traveling from Providence, you know, they travel from one end of town to the other.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll have to pick your brain about that separately, because that's,
Yeah.
I'm my wheels are turning, you got my wheels turning on that one.
That would be
Yeah,
something that could be fun,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, please do, yeah, that Sandy, what is it, Sandy Farm or Sandy Brook Farm or something, in Tiverton. Kind of did a little bit of a transformation like that, and part of the farm was subdivided and then became a affordable housing artist kind of
Oh, I know what you're talking
development.
about.
Right next to the Tiverton Library, I think, really close to the Tiverton Library. And, yeah,
Yeah.
Next
okay,
meeting?
great, well, I appreciate, yeah, John, did you?
Next meeting, the 8th?
Yeah, next meeting is the 8th. We will have proposals for the fall funding round are due later this month. We will be talking about those at our July meeting, so you'll get copies before then. And then probably would be good to, at our July meeting, to get an update on the Agricultural Preservation Fund. That kind of got sidelined for the
I forgot to follow through on that.
June town meeting, so we want to kind of see if, yeah, just kind of where that might be. Great, okay, so I will wish you a happy 4th of July now.
Bringing cookies on the 8th?
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to, you know, you missed the holiday cookies.
Yes, I did. I've never been right since.
No, and I have not felt right since either, because I had intended to drop them off at your house, and I never got that done. Then I'm
Oh, you're
thinking, like,
Italian now, you could bake them.
I have no occasion,
Want me to cook-
no
you don't want
occasion
me
to
to
bake,
bake Nope.
I have no occasion to bake cookies for you, but maybe, come Christmas again, I might be inspired.
Tell Madam Gretchen to, you know, anytime.
Oh, they had my cookies.
Yeah, we
My
did a
cookies.
taste
Was it?
test.
And Gretchen's was still better.
Everybody knew which ones were Gretchen's.
All right,
Yeah,
see there, yeah, absolutely.
all right. Well, a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All right, second discussion, I think we're good with that. All in favor? All right, great, thank you so much. Good to see you.